Hello folks, Meteorologist Jamie Kagol here once again with your 12 News Weather School lesson, and today it's a big one, tornadoes. We're going to dive into some of the ins and outs of tornadoes. We're going to get into how they're created. We'll talk about the enhanced Fujita scale. That's the scale that measures their destructive power, and we'll take a look at even how we detect them using Doppler radar. So as we start things out, a lot of us already know what a tornado is going to look like, and here we are with a classic example of it. We see these many times on the news as well as all over the internet. Lots of videos out there about tornadoes. So what causes that tornado? Well, first of all, when we really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we're looking for shear. We're looking for rotation with winds, especially in the vertical. Now here's two examples of directional shear and speed shear. Now that directional shear, that's when the direction of the wind changes with height. So in this example, the winds looks like they're going to be southeasterly at the surface, but as you move up, they start to rotate towards that southwest direction. But rotation, that's the key word there. Then you take a look at speed shear, and that's the difference in wind speed with height. So at the Earth's surface, the winds are lighter, but as you move up, the winds strengthen, and that also creates that rotation within the wind field. That's what we're looking for. Rotation is key. So how do these tornadoes form? Well, we're going to take that rotation we just talked about, that shear that's in the horizontal, and we're going to turn it vertical, and the thunderstorm does that. The thunderstorm does that by creating a lot of lift, creating that updraft in the thunderstorm, and it takes that horizontal rotation and turns it vertical, and within that area of vertical rotation we see the development of those tornadoes. And many times what it is that rotation will then get pulled and stretched, and just like when you see a figure skater spinning and their arms are out and then they pull their arms in, they start to speed up a lot faster. The same thing happens with that tornado, with that rotation, that fast spinning then in turns creates the tornado. And you can see at the bottom there a couple examples: weak tornadoes, strong tornadoes, and violent tornadoes. And notice the weak tornadoes, those tend to be about 88 to 90% of all tornadoes. Those are EF0s and EF1s. They do some damage, but they're certainly the weakest of the tornadoes. Those strong tornadoes, F2 or an EF3, that's about 10%. And then you're talking about the violent tornadoes, which is less than 1%, the EF4, the EF5. Those winds in excess of 166 miles an hour, and those tornadoes last for a very long time, sometimes exceeding 1 hour. The weak tornadoes tend to be about 1 to 10 minutes long, and those strong tornadoes about 20 minutes or a little bit longer. But the vast majority of tornadoes are going to be those weak tornadoes, those EF0s and EF1s. This is another example, another graphic showing you, again, how that rotation on the horizontal is turned vertical with that strong updraft within the thunderstorm right there. And that helps create that tornado environment within that thunderstorm there. All right, moving on to the enhanced Fujita scale. Now this is the scale. It has been tweaked. It was originally just the Fujita scale, but it has been retooled with the advancements of science. And here are the new numbers, EF0 to EF5, but you can see the wind speeds. That EF5, 200 to 234 miles an hour, and you can see in the damage category there, catastrophic. But most of them are EF0 to EF1, upwards of winds at around 109 miles an hour, and they have light to moderate damage. So the good news is 88 to 90% of them, again, are going to do light to moderate damage. But regardless of what kind of tornado is, you have to take them all serious. You have to take those watches and warnings, which we'll talk about in a moment. You have to take them serious. Now, taking a look at the detection, how do we determine where these tornadoes are, or even if we have a tornado? Well, you're taking a look at the Doppler radar right now. To the left side of your screen, that's the reflectivity. That's what we show you on air. That shows you where you might have light showers or strong downpours, and you can tell the difference. A light shower is going to be a light green shade, maybe a moderate shower yellow, and as you work your way up towards red and even purple, you get into those very intense downpours. But Doppler radar can also measure how fast those raindrops are moving towards or away from the radar. And we've had a lesson here on Doppler radar. If you want to revisit that one, you can. But this one to the right shows you the velocities within that storm. So the bright red is showing you strong winds away from the radar, and the bright green next to it showing you strong winds towards the radar. And when you have a bright red and a bright green next to each other, we call that a couplet. And that's called also a tornado vortex signature. It indicates very strong rotation, hence what could be quite possibly a tornado. So when you hear tornado warnings issued, you may hear them referred to as Doppler radar indicated rather than visually indicated or noted by a storm chaser or law enforcement. When they're indicated by radar, their indications are that we have this couplet, a strong red right next to the strong green, and the radar alerting the meteorologist that, hey, we may have a tornado there. So that's a Doppler radar indicated tornado. That's the example right there on your screen. Now, where do tornadoes happen? Here's a look at the globe and where we find those typical areas for tornadoes. And you can see that much of Europe does see tornadoes, parts of Asia, as well as Australia, South Africa, and a very, very tiny part of South America. But the vast majority of tornadoes around the world happen right here in North America, the vast majority in the United States. We are the hotbed for tornadoes. Now, taking a look at the individual states here, you get the idea of where Tornado Alley is going to line up. Anywhere from Texas up into Nebraska, extending over towards Iowa. You can see 40, 50, upwards of 80. Texas, it's a really big state. 140 tornadoes on average each year, and that is between the years 1985 and 2014. But it does paint a pretty stark contrast between the western part of the U.S., the Great Lakes region, the Northeast, and then Tornado Alley, the Midwest, right there. Also a good number of tornadoes in Florida as well. They tend to see strong tornadoes with strong cold fronts that come down towards the later part of winter. But for our typical spring and summertime tornadoes, Tornado Alley right in the middle of the country. Peak season, well, right here it shows you how things start out a little on the quieter side for March and ramp up right into May, holding on to some peak part of the season into June, tailing off as you go into July and into August. But May, and now on to the important terminology, tornado warning versus tornado watch. Now, tornado warning is when there's a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is imminent. That means that it is either going to happen very soon or it is happening now. That is when you definitely need to take action, take shelter immediately. You head to the basement, you head to an interior room. Now, a tornado watch means conditions are favorable for the development of thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes. That's the forecast side of it. That's saying throughout this time period and in this area designated as the watch, we are likely to have weather that could produce thunderstorms, that can produce tornadoes. So the watch is the forecast side of it. The warning, that's just it. It's the warning side of it. That's when you need to take action. Now, this is what a watch and a warning will look like on the map. In yellow, that's your tornado watch. Now, that will be an area, a large area, with a set start and stop time. And within that area is where it's forecasted to have possible severe weather and where you may have a tornado develop. Now, the warning in red, that is going to be where a tornado has been detected or it has been witnessed. And that polygon will be the area where they expect that tornado to have impact on those individual communities. And you'll get a typical where it's located when it's issued. You're going to get information like what direction it's heading in, how fast is it headed, and what communities will be impacted by it. All that information comes out with the tornado warning. As far as sheltering or where to take cover, it goes from worst options to best options, left to right. Worst options, mobile homes, vehicles, under a highway overpass. All of those are very dangerous. You do not want to stay in the mobile home. You do not want to be in your vehicle. And you certainly don't want to try to take shelter under an overpass. Other bad options would be large open rooms like gymnasiums and manufactured housing. you want to have a smaller room with a smaller span of ceiling over it. You want those support walls to be closer together. So an interior room is a very good option. You want to be in a well-constructed home or building, and in a basement is the most ideal. That's where most people go to during those tornado warnings. The best option above or below ground is a tornado storm shelter. And those are specifically a specifically designed FEMA safe room. Those you are going to more often find in the heart of tornado country, but for most of us, we're going to be in the good option. That's that interior room, windowless room. You want as many walls between you and the outside, and that's why we say interior room. Many times people will go under staircases, they'll get into the basement. Many times it'll be a bathroom. Bathrooms tend not to have windows. A lot of people will lie down in the bathtub and cover themselves. Those are all very good options. So there's a little insight into the tornadoes, tornado warnings, how we detect them, and the best places to take shelter. So I hope this was informative. I hope this was educational for you, and I hope you enjoyed it.